We're live for episode number 8 here today. I've got a special treat for everyone. Following up from the NHL Draft Lottery last week, I gave a lot of positive vibes out there to help our team move up. We didn't, which is fine, totally fine. We got the exact pick that we were supposed to, and we got with the pick that everybody thought we were going to get, the most likely pick. We were awarded the 6th overall draft pick. If you don't remember, if you didn't have a chance to listen to the last episode, essentially I explained how the NHL Draft Lottery works and how everyone is awarded a certain percentage chance at the first overall pick, depending on how they finished last season. We had about a 7% chance, not great, but it's a chance at the first overall pick. And we had about a 30% chance for the 6th overall pick, which is what we ended up getting. Funny enough, this is a year where there were no changes in the draft. Wherever you finished your season last year, that is exactly where you're awarded your pick. So the team that got dead last year in the standings, San Jose Sharks, was awarded the first pick. Second, third, fourth, all the way down to 6th, where we finished, were all awarded the correct picks, or the picks to where we had finished, which is fine. So wanted to answer the question. Okay, that was kind of exciting. Draft lottery. Now what? We've got the 6th pick. What does that mean? What does a 6th pick usually look like? How do we know if a 6th pick is good or not? So I actually went back the last 3 years and looked up I pulled all the draft picks from the Arizona Coyotes, now Utah NHL team, TB named. Going to get to that in a minute. We actually had some awesome updates this past week with the naming situation as well. So I'll get to that in period number 2, but staying on track here in period number 1, the past picks that the Arizona Coyotes have had are, I think there's some trends, and we are maintaining the same management crew, staff. So I would imagine the same trends are going to continue. So the current team that we have right now as a whole is very skilled and very young. Okay, what does that mean we're missing? It means that we're missing, obviously, young. The opposite of young would be experienced veterans. We could pull a few of those in the offseason. You don't really get those in the draft. So that's not really relevant in this conversation today. But what you can do is, if you have skill, you need to match it with grit and size a lot of the time. So that's been the objective the last couple of years with the draft in Arizona. So last year, 2023 draft, we also drafted 6th overall, and we drafted a Russian defenseman named Dmitry Samashev. Hopefully saying this right. Caveat, a lot of these names, not American, not Canadian, tough to say. I'll learn it as I hear it more often, but I'm going to give it a whirl for you guys today. So the Dmitry Samashev is 6'7", big guy, or 6'4", sorry, 6'4", big guy, and he's currently playing the KHL, Russia's national team or national league. So where picks come from in hockey is very different than other sports that you might watch, like the NFL. The NFL, just about all the picks come from NCAA. All your top picks are all coming from college teams. Hockey, international sport, there are leagues, there are teams all over the world, all different levels. There are some made players, and honestly, they do change over time on where the best players tend to come from or where the best players are. So it's a little bit more of a gamble when you're recruiting / scouting into different countries. And how do you compare, a defenseman in Russia with a defenseman in Texas to a defenseman in Toronto, Canada? How do you compare all those where they're playing in different environments? They're competing against different teams. Rules are pretty much the same, but styles are different. The Russian style is much different than American and Canadian hockey. It's just different. Even some places in Europe have different sized ice rinks. If you didn't know that, the NHL sized ice rink is actually smaller than what the Olympic size ice rink is. So to keep that in mind, there's a little bit of a transition for a lot of players that come and they play on a smaller sheet of ice. The NHL changed that to implement, or basically allow for, more scoring make it easier to score goals, because that's what us Americans and Canadians love to see, is a bunch of goals. So we put the players closer together, more goals happen. That's really what happened there. So Dmitry Smashev was our last pick, defenseman, big guy, rough player, skilled as well. But we need size. This team needs size. We've got tons and tons of skill. We need size now. In the playoffs of hockey, it's different than the regular season. And to be able to play an entire 82 game season, you need to be able to be big enough and physical enough and tough enough to make it physically. That's a skill in itself. You can score goals, but if you can't stay healthy and get out on the ice on a regular basis, then it doesn't do your team any good. So size helps with that, with being healthy, enduring hits and giving blows without injury. That's really a part of hockey that goes very under the radar, but being healthy and physical at the same time is a massive skill. And that's what we're hoping to get out of Dmitry Smashev. And then going back to 2022, our last pick was Logan Cooley, and the pick before that was Dylan Guenther. Logan Cooley was the 3rd overall pick. Dylan Guenther was the 9th overall pick. Both, I would say Logan Cooley, one of the best players in the 22 draft last 2 years ago, I guess now, with the 2024 draft coming up. Basically, very skilled player, going to be an awesome NHL player for a long time. Not going to help you on the defensive end a ton right now. Maybe when he develops a little bit more, he'll be more defensive help. But Dylan Guenther, 6'1" defenseman, going to help on that back end. Really, that's where this team is empty. We have basically 6 available spots right now. There's 6 defensemen on a team, and not a single spot, I would say, is locked in. So we got to draft. We have to refill this. We have to go out during free agency. That's our number one priority is let's get some defensemen in here. So to no surprise, in 2024, if you've looked at the roster of our team here coming into this season, we need another defenseman. We need players that can play. We will likely draft a defenseman. I also want to take a step back and also set proper expectations for people listening to this podcast. When a player is drafted into the NHL, think of it more similarly to maybe baseball, where when you're drafted, you don't just walk into the team and play on the team next year. It's very difficult to make a team on the first year. Usually the only, I'd say picks 1, 2, or 3 might have an opportunity to play in the NHL their first year. Also just kind of depends on the player, their size, their age, their development level, and where they think they are in their current development. But very rare for a player to play the year after they're drafted. Happens 1, 2 players a year will play the year after they're drafted. Where we expect to see a player like Dmitry that was drafted almost 1 year ago now to play would maybe be not even this upcoming season, but the one after that. So 2 seasons before a player actually plays that was drafted. So that means the player we draft this year, probably not actually going to see him on the roster playing for Utah until 2024. So just keep that in mind. This is all about future. This is all about longevity. It's all about building for a good team in the future and who fits your roster in the future. Not necessarily today, but who fits your roster in the future. So the 2 players that I have here kind of on watch for us are both defensemen. And I think, Arizona, Arizona would have tried to draft a defenseman. Utah is going to try to just draft a defenseman as well. I think personally, if I was drafting, I would pick the best player available and hope it's a defenseman. I would cross my fingers, be like, hey, I hope the best player available is a defenseman. But if any of the best players that are in the 5 picks above us are significantly falling, I say we snatch them up, grab the best player available. That is always the best strategy in drafts, if you ask me. I'll tell you a quick story of why that's important. In the 2018 NHL draft, a player fell a couple spots, not too many. The number 1 pick was Nico Hischier. Number 2, Patrick Nolan. Number 3, Miro Heiskanen. Number 4, Cale Makar. That number 4 overall pick, was, projected to go number 2 or number 3. Didn't for some reason. Colorado Avalanche grabbed the number 4 pick, Kyle McCarr. Turns out he's the best player in the NHL right now. Aside, maybe Connor McDavid would be argued to be the best player. But if you ask 32 of the GMs, general managers in the league, which player they'd like to build a team around, they're going to say Cale Makar on defense. So just saying, players fall. If they're falling, grab them. Like, you've got to grab the players if they're available. So the players I think will be available at this point that are also the best players are Zane Perrick and Zeev Buyam. Spelt very interestingly. So look it up. Zane and Zeev are who I would put on the watch radar. Pretty similar player profiles, I would say. Zane is from the Ontario Hockey League, the OHL, a very long time development league for the NHL. A lot of amazing players come out of there. Zane has set some pacing records and been top of the league as far as a defenseman scoring. Zeev, on the other end, was in the NCAA, top scoring defenseman in the NCAA. So we're both looking at top scoring defensemen in their respective leagues for juniors that have been drafted. I would say Zeev is a little higher on the hockey IQ, pass first guy. Zane, a little bit more of a stick handling, a dangler, as I like to say, defenseman that really will walk that blue line and shimmy along the way. Both are great to have. I think this team would really benefit from both. About the same size as well, about 6'1", a little over 6 feet for each one of these guys. So I would say Zane Perrick and Zeev Buyam. My slight preference at this point, after the research I've done and the highlights I've seen statistically, Zeev Buyam is the player I'd kind of pick here because he recently won the national title with Denver University. And I think it means something to draft a winner and to draft someone that's gone through a playoff style format, the Frozen Four. They've overcome teams and they beat some really competitive and really amazing Boston College and Boston University teams this year. They really came up the ranks through there. And I would say you can't pass on a championship title in the NCAA. And I mean, the OHL has their championships as well, but I would say draft players that have a pedigree of winning. You need that in the locker room. You need players that compete level at that highest level. So that's where I give the slight edge to Zeev Buyam. All right, moving on to period number 2 here for this episode 8. And I wanted to take a moment to talk about what everybody's seeing on social media and what everybody hopefully is going to fill out. If you're not filling it out, you better start filling it out. And I'll direct you to where you can go for that. The Smith Entertainment Group, Ryan Smith & Co., has released a 20-team initial first round selection bracket, you could call it, or survey. So essentially, everybody hop on NHLinutah.com, click select your team name. You get a drop down of 20 different names. You can select up to 4 of them. We have today's the 12th. We have till the 22nd to complete this. And then after the 22nd, they're going to announce the next phase of the selection bracket. So in these 20 team names, you see basically every single team name that's been talked about at this point in the, in socials, everything that you've seen. No new surprises. Well, I guess actually there are some big surprise names that I haven't seen before. Call them out quickly. I'm looking over here. So the ones I haven't seen before: Utah Canyons, Utah Mountaineers. Maybe you heard that one a little bit, maybe not a ton, but I would say the Utah Blast, Utah Frost, Utah Hive, Utah Caribou. That's out of the blue for me. Utah Powder and Utah Ice and Utah Squall are all newer ones. Some of the heavy internet favorites would be the Yeti, the Mammoth, the Outlaw, the Blizzard. Those are all heavy mountain time favorites, I would say, or, heavy internet. What I'm seeing everybody like mock up on AI drafts and everything. So hop in there. If you like any of those, make it known, vote. That's how we're going to make this team our own. That's how we're going to get behind this. We need tons of these in there. I would think that there's not going to be any bots. They called that out and said, we're going to be scraping these. We're using VPNs. We're making you sign up with an email. So I don't think you'll be able to vote more than once. You might be able to vote 2 or 3 times, but I would say that this is going to be a pretty honest fan evaluation here. So please, everyone, hop in there, give them your picks. I will not disclose my 4 picks until after the 22nd, just because I need you guys to keep coming back to my pod and keep listening. So just to keep that suspense up high, I'll announce my 4, on the 22nd is when I'll announce it. The last thing I'll say here for the name bracket is it does seem almost official that we will be wearing Utah on our sweaters, on our jerseys this year, and have Utah themed jerseys. Doesn't sound like this name is going to be ready. There's a little precursor to the survey that's within let's see, I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, so there's a little precursor in the name selection that says the team's wearing Utah on their jerseys year 1. So I would say it's basically official. Don't expect a team name this year. Set your expectations right. It doesn't matter what our team name is. We got an NHL team. We're going to cheer it on anyways. I'm looking to get me a Utah. Look at this Utah NHL team jersey. It's going to be vintage one day. So get it. Everyone buy the merch. No free ads, but I'm going to do it. So everyone else should too. Okay, moving on to period number 3 here. I wanted to spend some time also talking about next year and the team. The draft is great. Like I said, doesn't really affect us until 2 years out probably. But this next year, who's going to be our team captain? The Coyotes didn't have a team captain when they, were essentially acquired by the SEG, Smith Entertainment Group, and moved to Utah. That's a vacant position. And what does it mean to be a captain on an NHL team? I'll tell you what it means to be on a captain probably means a lot more than it does on any other sport. In NHL teams, the captain carries so much more responsibility than I would say it seems like everybody's a captain on an NFL team. There's like 7 captains out there. And then an NBA captain, that doesn't really mean much. You have leaders, locker room leaders. I'd say it's such a small, tight group anyways. It doesn't really matter too much. But I would say in the NHL, it is the biggest deal when you're a captain, and it's the biggest responsibility, honor that a player could have. Not everyone would be a good captain. There are NHL teams that have great captains, and there are ones that have captains, I would say. I think every player will always tell you that their captain is good. But on the outside looking in, the teams that have the best captains are the best teams. And you can really see that leadership aspect play in. I'm going to talk about Boston right now. The Boston Bruins had a longtime captain, and then this year recently switched to a new captain, Brad Marchand. And this guy, he's a pest on the ice. He's an irritator on the ice. He's a, get under your skin, talk smack during the games, really, play scrappy, but also a skill guy that can skate really well and scores and makes impact on the score sheet as well as in your brain on the other team. So this guy kind of took over the captaincy, and what happens? The team starts to mold to what the captain plays like. The team starts to gather around behind the captain. And if you have a captain that plays hockey in an effective way and in the right way, he takes no shortcuts. They, get to the right areas. They make sure their fundamentals are good. Their pregame prep is good. Their, interviews are solid. They're doing things for the fan. They think about the cup all the time. The winning the Stanley Cup is the thing that matters the most in the world to them. Those are the teams that really excel. I would say every team that's won the Stanley Cup, you can point to their captain and be like, yeah, that guy was 100% bought in the entire time. no no questions about it. 100% bought in. So what I think that'll happen here is I think we're going to get a captain, and we've rebranded this team. This is a rebrand. This is a change. This is a fresh start for everyone. We had 3 assistant captains last year, which I would say doesn't mean a ton in the NHL. It means a little bit, but really who's wearing the C on their jersey, that's where it really matters. So I think it would be fun. I think it would be smart for the team to kind of pick a player. Let's rally around this person. So I've talked to a few people that were heavy Arizona Coyotes fans / also met the players, have been around the players personally for a long time. And what I've determined is, it's unanimous from everyone who they think the next captain is going to be. And it's Lawson Krause. If you remember him from the actual event, I remember him from the actual event, and I didn't know much about the player or as an individual before the event. I would say it's no requirement to be good at speaking in front of 12,000 people in a stadium, but Lawson Krause, you could tell, was composed, was well thought out, spoke for the team. All the team members kind of relied on him in that moment of having to introduce themselves in front of 12,000 people. I'd get really nervous. I'd hate doing that. But Lawson Krause kind of stepped up in the moment, helped the team, like really just sound articulate in front of all those people and welcome say thank you for the reception that they were receiving. And it wasn't much, but I would say in that moment, I kind of felt like, hey, this is a guy that all the players look up to. Sounds crazy. It was just a short, brief time on stage, but I listened to all 20 players get up on that stage and talk, and Lawson Krause somehow stands out. So when people somehow stand out, those are the people that you want to make your captain. Those are the people that players want to rally around when, there's not a lot going on, but you're standing out. That means a ton. So I think Lawson Krause will likely be our captain. I hope it's this year. It would be amazing if we had a captain this year. If we don't, that's fine. I think that it would be beneficial, though. So just to give you some background on Lawson Krause, so we can all root for the same guy here to be our captain. He was the 11th overall pick in 2015. So he was picked by Florida, actually the Florida Panthers, and then traded to the Coyotes shortly after. He spent the last 8 years in the NHL. So think about it this way. 8 years in the NHL means that he started in 2016. So he still spent a year before he played for the Arizona Coyotes. So he drafted 2015. First year was actually 2016, playing in the NHL. So like I said earlier, it takes some time. But this guy, he's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's a big player. He's a rumble tumble, get to the right areas. What I also think is the best part about this guy is a 20 goal scorer. So that is an active benchmark in the NHL that players are striving to reach, that analysts look to, that coaches look at. 20 goals in an entirety of a season, pretty dang good. There's obviously 30, 40 goals, 50 goals. Austin Matthews this year almost scored 70, which is out of this world. But if you're a 20 good goal scorer on the NHL roster, you're a great player. He's consistently been a 20 good goal scorer for us, getting in the front of the net, pushing people around. He's also the type of player that, if a player like Logan Cooley or Clayton Keller is getting beat up on, or the other team's trying to really get under the skins of our skill players that are very, maybe not as big, but speedy guys, it's not unusual for a Brad Marchand on a Boston team to really try to get under the skin of our skill players. That's where a captain like Lawson Krause comes in and intervenes, intercepts Brad Marchand, and those guys can chirp each other, and those guys can go at it during the game, and the skill players can do their thing and score goals and win the game for you. I think it's a role player that is also effective on the score sheet that we have on our current roster right now, Lawson Krause. The little fun tidbit for him too, though. He interviewed with local news KSL in Utah and mentioned that he's excited to come out here. Obviously, wouldn't expect players to say anything other than that, but really he talked about his wife and his French bulldog coming out. So one thing to look out for this team. I'm going to be checking it out. I follow all the players on Instagram. You guys should too, along with me. Why don't you guys like and follow this pod? Check out Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. Like and subscribe. Helps me out a lot. We actually just hit 1,000 downloads, which is cool. I didn't really know that many people were going to be listening to this thing. So we're up to 1,000. We're going to keep going. We're going to take this to the moon. But watch out for those players' dogs. This is a team that a lot of the players have dogs. I got a dog. My dog might make an appearance on the pod one day. But that's what I would say for you guys between now and the next pod. Hop on Instagram, look up Lawson Krause, give him a follow, give Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Josh Stone, all the players, give them follows. Spicy Tuna, easy to find. Liam O'Brien. So give those guys, some follows, get to know the players personally. It's what's going to make this team our own. And again, we got an NHL team in Utah, and we're stoked about it. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you guys in episode 9 later this week. Thanks.